Okay, for this next section, I'm going to kind of skip around a bit. So first, let's talk just about letter C, F, G, H, and I. This is adding, subtracting, and multiplying polynomials. And we did this back in Unit 3. So this is adding, subtracting, and multiplying polynomials. So let's first talk about what we did in section 3.1, just adding and subtracting. If you guys remember, all this was doing is combining like terms. We're looking here at an x squared, and then we're looking that there's no other x squareds to combine. So x squared is my first term. We're then looking next at this 2x and this plain 1x. 2x plus 1x would be plus 3x. We're combining those like terms by adding the coefficients. And finally, at the back, you'll notice that we have this constant of -5 and this constant of -3. -5 plus -3 would be -8. We're combining like terms. So you're going to end up with a trinomial or a binomial, just depending. But here there's just an x squared because there was no other x squareds to combine. And then the x's went with the x's and the constant went with the constant. This is your final answer for combining like terms. Now on letter I, we have to subtract polynomials. And so there's an added step here where this negative at the back gets distributed to everything. It becomes -x squared minus 3x plus 1. All of the back signs change. So a little note to yourself, don't forget the negative changes all the signs at the back. Right? So now I can combine my like terms. I have x squared and -x squared. I'm going to group these this time just so you can kind of visualize it. X squared and -x squared, can you see that those are going to zero out? Then I have -4x's and -3x's. Can you see that those two negatives are going to combine together? And then I've got +5 from right here with +1 with a sign change. And those are now going to combine, same sign, so we add. So my final answer here, final, is going to be, these cancel out, -7x's plus 6. So subtracting polynomials, don't forget the negative in the middle, changes all the signs of the back. All right, so that's adding polynomials and subtracting polynomials. Now let's go up and talk about multiplying them. And I'm actually going to go here to H first. We taught you guys or reminded you of two methods. This is actually a middle school topic that you had reviewed. So FOIL method was going first times first, outer times outer, inner times inner, and last times last. We multiplied or distributed each of the front pieces to both of the back pieces and the back piece to both of the back pieces. So then we just multiply this out, x squared plus 9x minus 3x minus 27. Combining like terms, we end up with x squared plus 6x minus 27. Now think back, right now your skills have greatly, increased on this, but think back to when you were just multiplying these. Now we use this method to check our answer after we've factored. But so this was back when we were just learning to multiply with the FOIL method. Now, what was the alternative method you could use if you preferred? You could use the box method if you prefer. It's where we listed one of the binomials on the side and the other binomial on the top, and then we multiplied across and down. So x times x gave us x squared. 9 times x, -3 times x, and -3 times 9. And before we wrote the final result, we would combine these middle terms here. So I get x squared plus 6x minus 27, just like I did on FOIL. What was your preferred method? What are you going to use on this upcoming final? You can choose if you'd like to do FOIL or if you'd like to do the box method or known as the generic rectangle. It's up to you. Now this one over here, letter G. Ms. Sanchez taught these as using the box method because this one is a trinomial times a binomial. So we put the two-termed figure here and the three terms across the top. Now, I teach this method because I think it's easier to do box method when it's a trinomial times a binomial, but again, it's up to you. X times x squared, x times x, negative 7 times x. Negative 5 times x squared, negative 5 times x, negative 5 times negative 7. And then again, we combine like terms. These x squareds go with these x squareds. And these x's go with these x's. So here I go with my final result of x to the power of 3 minus 4x squared minus 12x's plus 35. Look to see if you get all of those when you combine those like terms. So again, I use the box method specifically when multiplying a trinomial by a binomial. Do you remember how we tell what degree the polynomial is? The degree of this polynomial would be 3, the greatest exponent. Keep that in mind for the section we're coming up on. Okay, now let's go back up to this top one. And again, pause the video, you choose your method. Ms. Sanchez is just going to do FOIL. So first times first, oops. Outer times outer. Inner times inner. Last times last. So we get 2x squared plus 16x minus 1x minus 8. Final answer with combined middle term looks like this. How'd you do? Again, feel free to use the box method, the generic rectangle if you prefer. Okay, that's adding, subtracting, multiplying polynomials. How'd you do? Do you feel ready for that on this upcoming final? Now, before, I'm actually going to pause the video here and do a little bit of exponent rule review before we do the rest of the section.